Hey, Trails Collective, Ian here for the weekly rundown for April 22nd, 2020. So for these weekly rundowns, myself and Ellie, given the state of the COVID pandemic, videoing in from her apartment, are going to try to provide you a window into what's shaking in our region. In this opening Trails Collective region, it's the Northeast, basically, plus the Virginias. And we're trying to keep it to a pretty regional model so that we can cover more functional and applicable, I guess, news or updates for most of us as opposed to just national headlines. So what's going on as opposed to continuing to try to dodge COVIDs would be just the impact for a lot of us on, I guess, the new norm these days. And as that extends to trail running. So something that is being spoken of or relating to a lot is some of us just don't have access to trails, whether it be statewide closure in New Jersey, some of the sections or a lot of the core sections maybe in Vermont being closed off, and how that's pushing maybe some larger crowds to other areas. And what that means for us, which have been lucky enough to maybe have trails with, I guess, to ourselves to a certain extent for a long time. It's just, I guess it's a split way to look at it. The impact's pretty heavy. There's definitely some, I think, confrontations out there at the moment. Maybe more trash on the trails that individuals, thankfully, I've seen in a couple clips are going out of their way to pick up in bulk. I think Trails Collective picked up, I think, Sheila and Eric, maybe a 40-pound bag, I think, this weekend from one of their local trail sections. But there's also the positive pieces, which I've mentioned, and that is seeing more families out there being forced, I guess, but enjoying the time seemingly together. The amount of people that I'm seeing that I don't see normally out running, and whether they be in gyms or not running prior. And so my hope is for a greater appreciation of the space and the time. And my hope is that those positive qualities continue on even after maybe we get back to normal here pretty soon. But definitely different. So we're all working through that together. And especially, I'll plug a clip here, I guess, behind me of a social media feed or video that came out of somebody in the line of cars in a popular trailhead at Harriman. And I guess lines like we've never seen in this clip, even a no parking zone. So again, it's pretty crazy times, entertaining it on one hand, but we'll see where it all goes. So this week coming, Ellie's going to deliver a good bit of the content here. She'll give you maybe what you missed or what you can seek out and tune into on the podcast, both audio and visual podcasts that are out there. She has a great interview that we'll plug later in the episode here with Sarah Kise on what she's up to. She's somebody, if you don't know, lives up in the Adirondacks, is an elite mountain runner, a nurse, so also in the thick of it, so to speak, and has a pretty cool event or goal for herself coming up here pretty soon. And she'll mention that in the clip. And then also what's going on in terms of events that are happening on the virtual scene and fundraisers. So she'll cue a little bit of that in here in just a minute with the clips. This past weekend, for a lot of us on Saturday morning, we woke up to a fresh bed of snow. For me, it made for a beautiful couple hours. Marshmallow, thick stuff, relatively up high for Ithaca standards. And it just made for a really beautiful morning. We're going to lead in with the a clip here from Matt Lipsey. And he joined a couple people in taking on a throwdown on the Half Dome in the Grand Canyon of Pennsylvania this past Saturday. Turned into a pretty wild outing. That route gains about 12 or 1,300 feet in about a little over a half mile with a corresponding descent on the other side. So pretty gnarly. And what I'm coming to realize more and more as I'm out there with the camera is that it's really tough to convey the pitch of ascents and descents with the video camera. So it's not really captured in this, but just know that's some pretty steep stuff out there. And they had a blast. I think they cut it close in terms of getting back without having headlamps and under snow, but made for a good classic Lipsey adventure. So yeah, Half Dome of PA. Check it out.
Gotta keep it stealthy. Yeah, brother. Oh. Hey. Yeah, dude. How's it going? Got a feeling that we're not gonna get that far. They're coming in through the window. This is not an innuendo. Dead Saturday, dead Saturday. Dead Saturday, dead Saturday. Dead Saturday, dead Saturday. Dead Saturday, dead Saturday. Jesus, bro, look at that. Come on, Dan, put some juice in it. Yeah. Well, Dan made it over the hill. Yay! Ready to go home? Yeah, let's go. Let's get out of here.
Oh, I guess coming up this week, and speaking of Aaron Stredney, for those of you who don't know Aaron, he's somebody to get to know. Pretty outstanding runner, climber, mountain biker, all-around active, fit dude. He's going to do a trail running trivia night this Wednesday, which this will probably be airing on the 22nd. I think he's going to be doing it Facebook Live on his own social media stream, so if you're not connected already, now would be the time to connect. And then my hope is that if it goes well, we can make that a regular thing, or maybe once a month on the Trails Collective to do some sort of related trivia night. We'll see if that works. Maybe I'll also twist Lipsey's hand, since he's full of pretty intriguing facts. But at the moment, let's get into it more. Ellie's going to give you a rundown of what was shaking this past week in the audio and visual podcast world. Take it away, Ellie.
Hey, Trails Collective, Ellie here, and let's talk about some podcasts. So, the first podcast, and I actually made it through a whole episode. And I mean, when it said over 2 hours, I was like, I don't know if I have that much time, but I persevered, and boy, am I glad I did. What am I talking about? The CULTRA podcast, Connecticut's Trail and Ultra podcast. This one was called Run Amok with Jonathan Voss, a Vermont race director. He talked about all the things that he's been doing since races have been canceled, how bad he feels about race directors who that's their whole life, and he previewed some events up there that I might have to go check out. They also talked about their Strava social distance challenge. Last week, it was Becky's strength challenge, where after every mile, you did 1 minute of strength work. And one lunatic did burpees and jump squats after every mile. I don't think I can jump, which is why I sometimes trip over painted lines. But it was kind of interesting, and so maybe I might try it on one of my runs this week. Yeah, I'm a week late, but who cares? Who's really paying attention? Speaking of other challenges, the FKT scene in Connecticut is exploding. It's really insane. And like they have so many great trails up there, so it makes sense. Art does the second annual Hoppin' Hodges 50K, and he sets a new course record in the process. Speaking of course records, Jimmy goes ham on the Q Trail and snags an FKT. And then this caught my eye, and I need to get this guy on this show. Fred has run 14,000 days straight. 14,000 days. He talked about running, the hardest run he did was in a blizzard in 1985. I wasn't born then. But, you know, I have to say that, guys, I do have some love for Connecticut because I qualified for the Olympic trials at Hartford, which is in Connecticut. So, you know, I got a little connection there, but I'm definitely going to start tuning in every week because it was such a great show. The Pain Cave, Jay and Phil released a new Pain Cave episode where they rate the top 10 ultra running films of all time. Now, I mean, it was a little controversial, you know, but I have to, running film of all time will probably still always be Life in a Day by Billy Yang about 4 women and their journey to Western states. I don't know, but it gets me, and I watch it before every race that I care about. Or there is one called The Source by Courtney Dauwalter, and if ever I'm feeling like kind of like, ugh, I watch that, and her attitude is infectious. So check those out, and check this podcast out for some more recommendations. 10 Junk Miles, first time we're mentioning this on the news show, interviewed Heather Cobb a couple weeks ago in their Meet the Nation quarantine series. Heather is a local Ithaca runner, and she talked about how 2 of her races that she was going to be running in the fall, in this coming spring, Skunk Cabbage, and even though it's not announced, probably the gorgeous Ithaca half, have been canceled. But she's not deterred. And it really stood out to me because Skunk Cabbage is still my favorite half marathon ever, even though it's hard. But it's my local course and I run it all the time. So you know what, Heather, next year, maybe we'll run it together. Running Inside Out did not release an episode this week, but I highly suggest that you go back into the archives to episode 3. I blocked out most of it, where local legends Jamie Hobbs and Mike Weldon talk about what it's like to be second place in a 50 miles into a race with 20 miles more to go. Is he talking about Laurel Highlands? Maybe he is. I know that I was 3rd place in a 50 miler with 8 miles to go, and I could see Caroline a half a mile ahead of me, and I didn't catch her. That was a hard race, but you know what? We've all been there. Hamstrings and Heartstrings, my podcast with Chris, we're hopefully recording tonight, so hopefully there will be a new episode in a couple days. Stay tuned. I really don't know what we're going to talk about. Life is Trail Running also did not put up a new YouTube video this week. However, I went back into their archives, and one from 2019, our favorite trail running channels. I really liked that too because it's exposing me to different media. So go back and look at a couple of their other videos. They've got some food recipe videos, and I'm making an appearance in one of the videos. So go watch for that. One that isn't exactly East Coast trail running specific that I've been enjoying recently is called The Growth Equation, and I think that we can all get a little bit out of this, both athletically and just in our regular life with what's going on right now. They just talked about cognitive dissonance, on how the opinions that we have of ourselves or what we believe our ethics and values are, they can, even though they're a good thing, they can also shade our judgment. So that means that we'll only look for information that confirms our beliefs. So if you think you're only an 800-meter runner, or if you think you only run on trails, you're going to look for articles and read articles and consume media that confirms that you should only run on trails, when you could do something on the road, or do something on the track, or do some hiking. And I think it's really important in this time, especially with the climate that we're in, to understand how other people are living their lives, understand what informs their decision, and have a little bit more compassion. Open your mind first before you try to change or open another person's mind. And that's our podcasts and media for the week. Back to you, Ian.
So I was also able to take in some of Jay and Phil's Pain Cave episode this past week. I was pretty curious about their top 10 rundown on movies. I was able to catch a few, but not all of them, interrupted by juggling kids in the middle. But I guess I was thinking on my own and thinking of films, and I'm not sure whether it made their list, and the couple that I didn't catch. But I was thinking that one of mine might be Run Free. For all of those who maybe haven't seen it, it was a film that came out in 2015. and it was basically tracing a bit of the story of Micah True, or Caballo Blanco, and how he really intersected with the Tarahumara down in the Copper Canyon of Mexico. The film, for me, I think I really appreciate it just because I really like the cultural angle. I like the dive into Micah, some of his background and just the character story. Also like just the tie-in that we get to their culture in the Copper Canyon, and also just the impact that maybe that has on their community for better or worse. And it's also personal for me. One of my segues into ultra running, a little over 20 years or so ago, I had the opportunity for a couple years while I lived in Hawaii to pace who went on to become a friend, Luis Escobar, in the inaugural and then I think the third year of the Hurt 100 trail race. And it was just it was a great immersion, I guess, into the culture at that time. Also, and it was cool just to see how he, I think, went on to be a core piece of that event. And so he that was in the film, and so it makes it more personal. And another one in there with Barefoot Ted. I had the opportunity, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years ago to spend an afternoon with him in Jules' shop, what was the starting of the Luna Sandal Company. And it was cool just to see him making these sandals in basically a one-room studio at the time. And then also the tie-in to, I think, arguably, if not one of the most impactful books that I've seen in run culture, has been Born to Run in 2008, I think it was. And had the opportunity to get to know Chris McDougall, the author, a bit. He came up and was a guest speaker at one of my events, the Virgil Crest Ultras, one year around the time that was coming out. And then we were also from a similar area down in central PA in Amish country. And he came to join us for one of our fundraising events down there. And so for all of those tie-ins, the story also became more personal for me in connection. So that would be probably one of the top on my list. And then also with the on the tie-in to the film front, another friend from the Northwest sharing a similar path, James Varner. He has an entity called Rainshadow Running. They put on some really beautiful and wonderful events in the Northwest. He and I had some time to hang out in Austin, Texas this past December. And I think, so historically, he's been doing a film festival called the Trail Running Film Festival. And I think this year the plan was not to put it on, but with everything that's going on, he spun and he was able to create a virtual format for it. So if you go on to trailfilmfest.com, he's going to stage a one-night showing or screening. It's going to be Friday, May 1st, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. It's going to go live. I'll hope to be in attendance per se on my couch, hopefully with one of my daughters. And hopefully others of you can check it out for what hopefully will be a pretty great collection of films. So yeah, all right, let's get back into Ellie. She's going to take us back through some of the virtual events or fundraisers that are shaking at the moment. Take it away, Ellie.
I didn't really know a succinct title for this segment, so I'm just going to say it's fun things that are happening to support local businesses during this time. So the first one is by Gary Robbins called I Support Local Race Directors. So it's a fundraising initiative to support local races and race directors brought to you by Gary Robbins of Coast Mountain Trail Running. So essentially, in an attempt to support trail races affected by COVID-19 cancellations, Coast Mountain Trail Running has launched a fundraiser where they're selling limited edition head wraps with the slogan, I support local race directors. The item has been designed locally in Vancouver, British Columbia, with all proceeds going to the individual race directors around the world. You can choose which race director or organization to support with your purchase. Head wraps cost about $18 and 100% of those profits will go to the organization that you choose. I think that's pretty awesome. Let's all rock some I Support Local Race Directors headbands. Why not? The Happily Running Race Company has started their version of the Rochester Running's Company Virtual Run Relay. So this is their social distancing virtual run. They want to see if they can get a full month of running every single hour covered. That's 744 runs. So you can sign up for one or as many runs as you want throughout the month, but the premise is that we keep the relay going. So if I run from 7 to 8, somebody else runs from 8 to 9, 9 to 10, and we're trying to get it for the whole month. I think as a community we have 744 runs in us. Why not? Pick a date and time you want to run, fill out how many miles you plan on running, and give your Instagram handle a shout out so we can give you some love. Now this was really cool, and I found this on the MassUltra website. Christopher Agbay of Wicked Good Bakeries has a Thanking Our Heroes cookie donation initiative. The idea was simple. For every cookie customers purchased to send to doctors, nurses, and other first responders, Wicked Good cookies would match 1 for 1. Customers also submit drawings, photos, and other messages of thanks and support to those on the front lines in the crisis, and Chris would print them directly onto the cookies with his custom cookie printer. In the first 24 hours of this initiative, 222 cookies were donated by customers, which meaning that they baked 440 custom cookies. And they estimate that by now they've made over 4,000 cookies, which is insane. So essentially, this bakery, Wicked Good Cookies in Massachusetts, was struggling, like we all have been, with the cancellations of races, because they print cookies for races, and also having to lay off workers. And so they wanted to figure out something that they could do to help. So they started printing cookies and making cookies, and now they're supplying cookies to hospitals and relief workers and donating. And I mean, what better way to bring the cookie together, the community together, than over some cookies? So the Christopher Agbay is also an ultra trail runner who had a lot of race plans in the coming spring, and they've obviously been canceled. So trading trails for cookies, or trails and cookies, I think that's something we can all get behind. Check out the article on the Massachusetts Ultra website, because that does a really great job of describing it. Some virtual events that are going to be happening now and in this next week is the Aravaipa Strong Virtual 50K. Aravaipa Racing Company is actually out of Arizona, but there are a lot of people in across the world that are participating. Local runners Pete Kresak and Jen Wolkub are also participating, and so once they finish, we're gonna try and get some quotes and video from them. So good luck, guys, and if anybody else is participating, please let us know. And then, of course, the Finger Lakes Running Club's virtual COVID-19 fun run, Save Our Shops, is happening April 27th to March 3rd. So you still got time to sign up, donate, and help out Finger Lakes Running Company.
And on the Wicked Good Cookies front, I don't know if, for those of you who aren't familiar with Wicked Good Cookies, they're pretty wicked good. And it's pretty cool to have the tie-in with Chris Agbay. He's done Breakneck Point in, I think, 2 or 3 years. In 2 of the years, I think 2 of the years we had Wicked Good Cookies at the event. And I think they may have even donated them. Pretty awesome company. For all you RDs out there who want a really great alternative to maybe a finish line medal, you should go in on these cookies. I think we had the logo printed on it, and it made for a pretty cool finisher's item. And I think I'm going to have to get back to that. So Chris and Wicked Good, I think it's maybe you and your brother. Thanks for everything that you're doing and continue to do on that end. So hopefully we'll see you out there sometime soon. What else is going on? On the FKT front, Connecticut continues to be hammering away with several going down again this past week. One of them in Connecticut was Sarah Ports Connor. She's one that has 8 FKTs already in 2020, so wasting no time in getting out there and after it. And she took the new supported record for the Woodbridge Greenway loop. Looks like a pretty loop. So nice work, Sarah, in getting after it again. In Virginia, Whitney Richmond set a flying time for the 52-mile Capitol Trail. I think running it in 7:41, which is just cooking. Some of the images of the trail look pretty beautiful. Looks pretty fat and fast. Yeah, let's try this again. Flat and fast. There we go. I'm not sure whether there's already an event there or not. Excuse my ignorance, I'll learn. But if there's not, and if it's possible, it seems like pretty right for an event. So for all you in the collective audience out there, if there's already an event, cue me in, because I want to look it up. but she's flying, and I think at least a couple hours faster than the existing men's FKT. So Whitney, nice work. In New York, Joshua Reed shaved a little under 5 minutes, coming in at 2:20:59 for the Blackhead Range FKT. Was previously held and shaved that time off of Ben Nephew's record. For all of you who know Ben, we know that he's probably one of the better technical runners historically in the U.S. And you know that the Blackhead Range is pretty home turf for him with escarpment. So Josh, for shaving 4.5 minutes off of Ben's time, nice work, man. That's pretty awesome. In Massachusetts, New York area, Todd Curtis took 10 minutes off of the prior best on the South Taconic Trail. Also looks like a really beautiful trail. Nice work, Todd. His time was 3:43. Let's see. Speaking of FKTs, I guess a good time to get into the interview with Sarah Kise and Ellie that I had mentioned at the outset. She's got a pretty really burly FKT site for an adventure coming up. Talk about that here in a second. And yeah, let's hear it.
Start out with who you are. So you are a professional runner, and so you're actually one of the first ones that I knew of, you and Laura Kline. And so what does that entail? What do you do in addition to your other jobs?
So, and it's funny because I don't know that I consider myself a professional runner. Trail running is an interesting genre of running because there aren't many people that make a living just trail running. Like myself, I'm a coach. I work as a per diem nurse, but I do have this fantastic opportunity to be on the La Sportiva mountain running team. And that started for me back in 2016. So I've been running competitively, I guess, since like 2014, doing ultras. My first ultra was on the Wakely Dam Ultra here in the Adirondacks. And I immediately fell in love with, the idea of, testing myself in the woods and then hanging out at a party at the finish line and having a beer. And those sorts of things align with, my ethos. So for myself right now, life hasn't changed a whole lot for me, with the current pandemic. I'm still training, running. I'm really enjoying training just to train right now without the pressure of an event on the horizon. So that's my norm.
So you do say without the pressure of an event, but I know that you are a frequent FKTer. And you just set one a couple of weeks or about maybe a month ago now, actually. It feels like 3 years ago in pandemic speech. So tell me a little bit about FKTs, and if you're not training for an event, but an FKT is an event. So tell me about that.
Sure. So the FKT you're speaking to is the Saranac Sixer Ultra, which is 6 small peaks around Saranac Lake where I live. And I kind of decided on a whim after my race at Chuckanut was postponed that I would go for the Saranac Sixer. And you're right, it's definitely like an event in its own right, where you need recovery afterward and that sort of thing. So I guess that was about a month ago. So I did that FKT and then took a week of recovery time. My race schedule for the foreseeable future is sort of undecided, and that's okay with me at this point. But I am thinking of doing some FKTs locally, trying to, run from home currently as much as possible and really not driving anywhere. But for this season, I'm thinking I might attempt the Adirondack 46er supported record, which is there's 46 peaks over 4,000 feet here in the Adirondacks. So I'm going to attempt to do them all with support so you can be dropped off at trailheads and picked up. But the record for the men right now is held by Ryan Atkins at 3 days and 5 hours, which he took from my friend Jan Welford last year. And I think Jan's time was 3 days and 17 hours. So he did cut a sizable chunk off, but there's a lot of bushwhacking and it's pretty unforgiving up here at times. So this will be a good year to go for it, because it'll take some time to recover. It's like 165 miles with 60,000 feet vertical gain, so it's steep. Yeah.
That'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah, and it, like being that I grew up here and this is my, backyard, it's pretty, I've been thinking about, it's been, something I've thought about for quite a while. It's just, there's never been an opportunity where I didn't have another race to think about and then, near future after doing it. So this would be a perfect time, I think.
Yeah, I think that's going to be really cool to see a lot of elites, because I know you probably base your schedule around, like we were saying, UTMB points or something to ranking or, appearance fee or whatever, but, or just being a good athlete for La Sportiva, getting out there. So I think, yeah, it'll be really interesting to see all the FKTs that have already started, and I feel like they're just going to keep dropping. It'll be an interesting year, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's it'll be really interesting to see how things go. I mean, the fall could be very packed with events, but it'll be interesting to find out if things will even happen, and or if they look different, maybe it'll be more staggered starts, or it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
So on your other side of your life, you're also a nurse.
Yep.
So how's that changed with the pandemic? With what type of nurse are you, and how have you seen things change for you?
Yeah, so I work here at our local hospital. It's a 45-bed hospital, so it's pretty small. We did double our capacity up to 90 because of the pandemic. Luckily, we have not needed those beds. Our census has been quite low. And so I work per diem in a med-surg unit. So for folks that, stay overnight if they come in because they have cardiac issues or diabetes related issues, or they get a knee replacement, those are the types of patients I work with. And luckily, we've actually seen a decline in those more typical cardiac and diabetes related issues. Those numbers have gone down, which is interesting. I do think people are being more risk adverse, so they're not doing things that might cause them to break their leg or do that, those sorts of things. But I've also talked to other medical professionals across the country, and they seem to find the same thing, that there's less appendicitis, less heart attacks, which is interesting. So their ERs and beds aren't full with those sorts of patients. But so I haven't been working a ton. I do think my hours will increase at the hospital now, as we have been seeing some positives in our hospital for COVID, but I'm very cautiously optimistic that the social distancing is working here. We're a small area, but we're only 5 hours from New York City. So, at first, 3 weeks ago, people were pretty nervous that we'd be overrun with sick patients, but knock on wood, so far so good.
Those secluded mountain towns are going to thrive.
Hopefully, yeah. I think it's we have a lot of second homeowners here too, so we were nervous that people would try to escape the city to come up here, but I do think they did a good job of quarantining themselves and being taking it seriously, so that was good. But we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. So when you do these big events, I know that one thing that I've been conscious of is the lowered immunity when you do a big push or something like that, or a big workout even. Mm-hmm. And right now, I know me personally, I'm 40 to 60 minutes. I don't think I'm lowering my immunity, but I know something like an FKT or the training that you are still doing, that can happen. So speak to that. What are you doing to ensure that you're not decreasing your immunity, or if you are, staying away or something like that?
So yeah, that's a good point. So if I, after doing that FKT last month, I actually pretty much went into quarantine myself, mainly because it was kind of a fun game to see how long I could go without going into public. And I didn't need to, I could stay home or just run from home. But after a race or an FKT or a hard workout, your immune system can be low and lessened for 24 hours. So it's a good idea to kind of just stick to home if you can for that time period, plus probably get some more sleep. Sleep is the most underrated recovery tool out there, I think. But also they have shown that zinc can help with reduction of the common cold. So I try to increase my zinc before I do an FKT or a hard workout. And that way I'll have it in my system, if I were to come in contact with something that might make me sick. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tips for people doing those FKTs.
Yeah. And, zinc is, you can, on a little disclaimer, you can overdose on zinc, so don't take too much. But it's helpful with like all sorts of cell development, and it's an important nutrient to have.
Too much zinc, you like turn into like one of those Dragon Ball Z Super Saiyans, just like ripping off your clothes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. Thank you so much for being willing to redo this. And so to close out, why don't you just give us your social media handles, where to follow you? Are you taking on coaching clients, where people can find that resource?
Sure. So I am taking on coaching clients at the moment. You can find me. My website is sarahruns.com, Sarah with an H. And my Instagram is Sarah Kai's Runs. I think that's also my Facebook too. So you can find me on all those different platforms. So.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you again, Sarah.
Yeah, you too.
Have a good rest of your day.
So we'll try to stay cued in to if Sarah's able to get out after that. It would be great to get up and try to cover that and be present. We'll see. It's a little bit tougher to do these days with no time on my hands and juggling more work than I can handle and kids. But it's fun to think about maybe getting up there. So let's see. I think that's really what's gone down this past week. As we go, we're going to hope to always close out with maybe a voice and some thoughts from somebody out in the Trails Collective. This week, it's going to be stud athlete Laura Kline, cueing us into a little bit how it's going for her. So thanks for joining us here for this week. We'll catch you next week, and take it out, Laura.
Hi, it's Laura Kline checking in from Syracuse, New York, inside my house on my bike, which is where I've been logging most of my miles these past few weeks. I have been trying to get outside to run every day, just road miles, leaving from my house, running through the neighborhood streets, keeping it local. I have no expectations right now on volume, on doing workouts, worrying about pace or speed. This is really just about staying healthy, staying active, and mostly just staying sane. Seems like every day now I get more bad news from family and friends. A lot of loved ones affected by this. So I'm really just trying to relieve some stress and take care of myself so that hopefully I can help take care of others. I want to say thank you to all the essential workers out there who are taking care of us. I hope everybody is staying healthy, staying active, and most importantly, just checking in on one another. Hopefully I'll see you out there soon. Take care. Bye.